This is a DrumWise Meets, and today I'm here with a drummer who's worked with the likes of Lennox, Anastacia, Beck, Mike The Mechanics, and Hotei. I'm here with Steve Barney. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Tom. How are you, man?
What age did you get into drums? And when you first started playing, what bands or artists inspired you?
Okay, well, I was probably around 5 years old, Tom. Sort of early memory is kind of my dad and mum buying me a little Chad Valley toy drum kit from the Argos catalogue. And it had Top of the Pops written on the front. And I used to just basically play along in the best way that a 5-year-old can do to my dad's record collection, you know, be it Genesis, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. And I would just, I was just kind of bash my way kind of around this little kind of tin toy kit. But I was really encouraged and enthused by my dad and my mum, but predominantly my dad, who's a big music lover. And yeah, that's just kind of progressed. And basically, I mean, a really early memory of huge inspiration, apart from my dad and his record collection, and him kind of seeing that there was a seed of definite interest and a spark of love for drums and music from me, was my dad and my uncle Roger took me to see the great rock band Genesis play in Great Yarmouth, and I was 9 years old, and that was in 1980. So I'm that old. I'm that old, guys. But that was an incredible night for me, and probably for everyone that was in the theatre, to see such a massive rock band in such a small theatre, when they were basically going back out to reconnect with an audience, doing theatre shows. And even as a young 9-year-old kid, I knew it was a really special night, and the feeling of like Charlie getting the golden ticket, for the chocolate factory. So that night is so vivid in my old mind now. But it was an incredible night watching Phil Collins and Chester Thompson playing side by side in the most feel-good, precise, rocking, passionate way. And I was really moved, even at sort of quite a young age, by the prog rock of it all, the light show, the smoke, the adrenaline, something called patchouli that blokes used to spray on themselves, leather jackets, sticky beer on the floor. I could just remember all. But I felt like, albeit I'm not a religious person, but I felt like that night was a religious experience for me. And I came away from that theatre going, Dad, I want to be a drummer. So yeah, I have to say that was a big early inspiration.
Good stuff. And we talked there about your first drum kit, your Chad Valley drum kit. Let's talk about first instruments here. So normally I ask what was your first drum kit, but obviously you've told us that. So talk to us about maybe what kits you had after that, and also, do you still have the Chad Valley drum kit?
So the Chad Valley kit my parents do still have. I really should get it up here to Liverpool, where I live. My parents are still down in Norfolk, my birth hometown, But yeah, that would be quite a nice thing to have up on the wall, I think. I just need to run it by my wife before I do it. But it's got a special meaning to me, As I say, it's got a Top of the Pops logo on the front. And for anyone that is of a younger age may have never heard of that show, but to me, growing up as a kid, the words Top of the Pops meant a big thing. And it was a big TV show, as you probably remember. A weekly TV show where people would see all the kind of current hits. So to have that on your bass drum felt like, to me as a little kid, it was the dream that might one day happen,
Yeah.
But in answer to your question, after that, I think my dad's uncle Harry sort of handed me down, I seem to recall, what was an old Salvation Army bass drum and snare drum and hi-hats. And they were kind of ropey, but they were something that I felt was like a drum kit, or at least I could do some basic playing on. But really, my first proper kit, after I'd run out of biscuit tins and pots and pans in the house, was a Premier Club.
Right.
Which initially my parents bought for me with a snare drum. It was a 3-piece kit with a snare, so it was a kick, rack tom, and floor tom. But as I got more and more influenced by Phil and the prog, my dad bought me some concert toms. So I added,
Awesome.
I had like three toms along the top end of things. But yeah, I don't have that kit no more, unfortunately.
Oh man, and that's quite cool. You know, while we're talking about kits, my next question is going to be going on to talking about what you currently use. And I know, obviously, you mentioned there, like your first kind of, you know, proper kit that wasn't the Chad Valley one was a Premier. How cool that you then went on to, you know, be a Premier artist. And of course, talk us through, you know, what you use these days as well.
Absolutely. Well, I had a great working relationship with Premier, and I'm very grateful to them and the work we did together. But as you're asking, as of now, mate, or definitely since as of 2016, I've been with Natal Drums, who I'm super happy with, and I've got a couple of really nice touring kits from them which I use. One Babinga wood, and one is a birch, and then I've got a few various choices of snare drum. A real kind of favorite of mine as a main snare drum is 14 by 8 deep, which you might think would sound really deep, and of course that has got that ability to do that, but I kind of like to crank the snare up quite a lot for my main snare. So to me, the 14 by 8 has got a crack and a real precision, but obviously the depth as well. So yeah, so I've been with Natal since 2016. My cymbals of choice is a Zildjian. I've been with Zildjian 25 years, and love the cymbals. And again, I've been really fortunate to have their support, you know, over the years. And I play Veta drumsticks. I use Remo drum heads. I use Roland for electronic stuff, for triggering sounds. I use Sennheiser for monitoring. I like the HD25 headphones. I know a lot of people tend to use in-ears, but I really favour the sound and the comfort of these HD25s. I case my drums with a protection racket, and I sit on a Porter and Davies stool. So all in all, I'm a lucky man, you know.
And you say that you use protection racket cases. Is it really cool for you that they've got a picture of your face wearing sunglasses on them?
Mate, I'm a model. Look at me. Mate, you know what? You're not the first person to say that, but it is quite nice that, I mean, listen, Dean Badry and the protection racket guys are good friends of mine, and we've laughed about that. Once, when I take my cap off and I put my sunglasses on in the summer, I guess there is a resemblance to the protection racket logo. You know? Yeah, thanks.
On to another question that a few people have found pretty tough, but from what you said, I've got a feeling I know where this answer may lie. If you had to pick just one, who would be your all-time favourite drummer?
It's obviously a difficult question because there's so many kind of drummers that we're all influenced by, and to pick one to cover all bases is very, very difficult. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is easy for me to say it because Phil Collins and the inspiration of seeing him play, you know, at that theatre in 1980 is kind of sort of still with me sitting here today. So Phil Collins for me is the complete package for his identity and his sound, his feel. He's got such an incredible feel, you know, not just on the Genesis and his own solo records, but if you really delve in, there's so many projects that he played with over the years because he was such a sought after drummer, from mad fusion rock stuff to kind of feel good kind of song stuff where you don't even notice the drums because the song didn't call for it to be crazy drums. So yeah, I think Phil, mate, for me, he is the perfect drummer. I just love everything about him. His sound, his flair, he was fearless back in the day. I mean, we all know, sadly, he can't. He hasn't got the ability to play like he once could because he's an older man and various kind of health things have happened to him. You know, but he doesn't have to prove anything to me. He's my hero. You know, him and my dad is my hero, but my drumming hero is is obviously Phil Collins. Mm. But yeah, you're right. It's really difficult to pick more than one. You know, I have to, you know, in a little sort of side list, I have to shout Chester Thompson because every Genesis show, Phil Collins show, Chester was there, so he was a big inspiration. And as the years kind of went on, and I gradually, because I was very stuck to only listening to anything that Phil was involved with. I mean, my poor dad would be like, yeah, just check this David Bowie album out or check this Deep Purple out, you know, and I would, you know what I mean? But I was very, very stuck on just listening to just Phil Collins, you know. But no, as time went on, I kind of in the 80s, there was lots of drummers that came to my attention that was really inspirational. And, you know, I have to mention Phil Gills from Level 42 was a big inspiration. I love listening to him. And I love Gary Husband, you know. And I was aware of great drummers, you know, happening with Sting, like, you know, Omar Hakim and Vinny, Mano Cache. But then into the early 90s, I got more into sort of alternative rock and a particular alternative rock scene that was happening in the States that at the time was quite an underground thing, where bands like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, you know, they weren't on the radio, but through friends of mine that influenced me to listen to certain things, I became a real fan of the Chili's. So obviously I have to shout Chad Smith. And I have to mention Philip Fish Fisher, who plays in a band called Fishbone. He's an incredible drummer if you don't know him. A guy called Anthony Johnson, who played for a band called 24/7 Spies. He's heavy pocket metal kind of funk rock drummer. Brain, a guy called Brain, who plays for Guns N' Roses and Primus. Tim Herb Alexander from Primus. And one guy I really want to mention, sorry, this is really diverting off your list. We know Phil Collins is the man. This is my little side list.
This is all good.
I want to mention a couple of other people that really inspired me. Sheila E., you know, everything she did with Prince. Nearly every Prince drummer has blown me away in one way or another. You know, Michael Bland, geez, what a powerhouse. But British guys as well, as I said, like I was really into a band called It Bites. So I love Bob Dalton, who again may not be a name on everyone's lips, but Bob was an absolute solid powerhouse. Yeah, there you go. There's a bunch of people I liked.
That's great. No, that's cool. It's really good to have a list of people to go away and research, I think, for people watching this and for me. You know, some of those names.
I can research my past.
Yeah. And
well, mate, seriously though, all joking aside, and sorry to interrupt, I think if, like, we've all got ears and we're all influenced by everything we hear, that doesn't mean we, you know, we don't have a favorite of everything, but I think there's something in every drummer that we hear. Obviously, we're here talking about drums, but we love music. But there's something in every drummer's kind of style and personality that shines through. And, you know, really and truly, mate, I'm inspired by everyone I hear in one way or another. I think we all take a little bit of something from everyone, you know.
Yeah, and that's so true, and that's kind of why I've even written this question, because it's not a trick question, but it's a loaded question, because yeah, you know, we do take influences from all different people that we hear throughout our careers and our lives, but yeah, I think that there's always like that certain few people that have a special place in our hearts, isn't there? Like with you, with Phil Collins, and obviously going back to him just briefly, you know, what you said about the different stuff that he did. You know, when I first heard his playing on Brand X, Unorthodox Behavior, I believe is the album.
Amazing record, yeah.
You know, and like Nuclear Burn. When I found out that was Phil Collins, I was just like, you must be joking, like, and just blew my mind. So if you're watching this and you haven't listened to that track, listen to that track.
And if you're watching this and you haven't listened to that track, and you do listen to that track, you need to listen to an album, I believe it's called Product by Brand X. And there's my favorite Brand X track with Phil on it. It's called And So To F. And that's an amazing instrumental track where Phil just, I can't remember what time signature it's in, but I definitely can't dance to it. Let's put it that way. But there's a really great live version, if people can find it, that Phil did on his first ever solo tour as an encore. And I'm sure everyone was kind of waiting for, you know, Can't Have Your Love Part 2 or a ballad. And Phil came out with the Earth, Wind and Fire brass section that he used to have on stage with him and smashed out this version of And So To F. And Phil's drumming on that is incredible, guys. So yeah, definitely check out both what Tom said and my suggestion. I really think you'd enjoy.
Awesome. Now, on to possibly another difficult question. Because, you know, we all do so many different things in our careers, so it might be hard to pinpoint an absolute highlight. But again, if I had to make your life really difficult, Steve, and say, if you had to pick just one thing, what would be the highlight of your career so far?
Okay. It is a difficult question because, again, everything is a highlight. If you're lucky enough, someone has picked up the phone and dialed your number for a job, or someone has taken the trouble to email you to offer you a job, that all of those calls and interactions are a highlight. But as far as career being on stage type of a highlight, I would have to say in 2005, I was fortunate enough to be part of the Lennox band, and we'd done subsequent 2 tours the year before and the year before that in North America and Europe. And we were really lucky in 2005 to do Live 8 at Hyde Park in London, where Annie was a part of that special day. And I think for me, it won't get bigger than that. You know, playing with her was definitely a highlight in my career. She's an incredible artist and so emotive, so passionate, and so kick-ass on stage that it really ticked every emotional box you could ever hope for in a gig. But that particular day, like for every band and artist that was on it, we were playing to like 250,000 people in front of us. So that's definitely my biggest ever concert, you know, that I've done. And my memory of that, apart from just being in awe of the moment and trying to embrace and really truly cherish that moment while I was there, was looking to the right of my drums as I was, you know, playing, and I sort of just glance over, probably to see my dear friend Yard, you know, my drum tech, to say hi while I'm playing, whatever. And I saw Paul McCartney, Madonna, Brad Pitt, Sting. It was just like the who's who watching Annie, and I was like, wow, man, this is the one. This is everything you ever hoped you might get to in your life. So I would say that was definitely a career highlight for me. But I would like to say, like, again, with the Phil Collins thing, a slight side note of that. A real special thing for me, 2 things, sorry, was being on tour with Annie in 2004. We were opening for Sting. So we did 60 shows across America. So as a Police fan, that was a ridiculous thing for me to even be able to watch him 60 times, let alone have the opportunity to play with Annie. And that was a great tour for all the reasons you can imagine. Yeah. But the highlight of that tour was 2 highlights of that tour. Was one, getting married to my wife, where all the band and crew came to our wedding in Las Vegas.
Awesome.
And my mum and dad, 2 weeks later, we weren't able to come out to the wedding, but I flew them out and they came to watch me play at Madison Square Gardens. So that was, you know, I have to say, as an outside experience looking at me, their son, they must have been, well, I know they were super proud. Yeah. From the little kid that was on the Chad Valley Argos drum kit, being there at Madison Square Gardens, I couldn't be more grateful to them, you know, and to Annie for asking me to be there. So yeah, that was a highlight. And also doing a Mike and the Mechanics tour in 2017, covering for Gary Wallace, the great Gary Wallace. You couldn't do that tour, and I was lucky enough to do that. And as the Genesis fan in me, it was immense to be on that tour, sharing the stage with Mike Rutherford and the rest of the guys. But the after show of that, I got a guest list. I got my mum and dad, and I got my uncle Roger and his wife, my auntie Glynis, to come. So to introduce Mike Rutherford to my dad and my uncle Roger after the show, who were the two guys that took me to see Genesis when I was 9, it was like full circle, and that felt amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's really special. That's really nice.
It really was, mate. It was, yeah.
You know what could have made the Madison Square Garden gig a bit better though? You could, when you flew your parents out, you could have asked them to bring the Chad Valley drum kit that started it all, and you could have used that for the show, or at least
I could have put the bass drum in front of my bass drum. I know, that would have been a really cute thing, wouldn't it? God, that would have get a little microphone and put that through the Madison Square Garden PA. No, but that was, mate, I've been so, I know we're not going to really talk about the kind of sort of current situation we're all in. It's been a tough time. I ain't gonna lie, and I'm a pretty tough man, but I've got emotions, and we're all trying to get through this kind of giant pause that the industry and people are in, and not just the music industry. We know everyone's affected by this, and I thank all the doctors and nurses and all the frontline people who are working so hard. But for me, while it's been and continues to be a tough time, I'm so grateful that I can look back on my career in retrospect and go, I'm sort of so grateful for all the things I've done, and just be mentally grateful for that. In hope that beyond this, it's going to carry me forward, because I ain't done yet.
So I seem to remember reading somewhere that you're not really a drum music reader. So with that in mind, when you first get a gig with a new artist, how do you go about learning the material? Because, lots of people I've spoken to on these interviews say that they'll hear, that they'll listen to what they've got to play, and then they'll transcribe, or they'll be given some music. So how does it work for you in general, throughout what you've been doing?
Well, you're absolutely right. You did read that correctly. I've been quite honest in any kind of interviews I've done, and I had a great drum teacher called Slim Harris who did teach me notation and that, or at least thought he was. But I was kind of like absorbing his kind of his sticking and looking at his hands and basically absorbing what I was seeing and hearing. But the notation I found really difficult. So I was kind of like pulling the wool over his eyes and kind of cheating, really. But in another way, I guess I learned that I was a good listener, and I was good at picking things up quick. And of course, I can't play everything. Of course I can't, and I couldn't then. But in answer to your direct question, with gigs that I have got and will get again, we kind of sent, like you sent the set list, you sent MP3s or links to the songs. And while I don't write out notation because I don't have that ability, I do kind of write out a kind of a roadmap of, from the start of the song to the end. And I will write, the length of the kind of the first verse or the intro, first verse, chorus, second verse, double chorus, middle eight, outro. And then any things, particular fills or particular signature stabs that I might need to catch, I'll either write this might sound crazy, but I might write things that will be words that sound like the fill I need to remember.
Yeah.
And I don't know, flats in Dagenham. I know everyone says that, but I'm just giving you that as an example. Or I might reference a drummer or a particular band or a song that this song might sound like, But ultimately, I do make notes, but by the time I'm on the road playing the shows, it's usually kind of in here and I don't need to read anything. I may have. I mean, I do have an iPad with the tempos on, because I think like most drummers, or certainly most gigs that I've done and do, really in the last 20 years, have all been to click. And if something doesn't have any track-based stuff that I need to play to, then I do like to play with the click as well for my own reference. I mean, if you're playing with a particular artist where things need to push and pull, of course I won't do that. But yeah, in answer to your question, I do kind of write out a kind of roadmap of the song or songs. But to the proper musician like you that can read, they probably look like nursery drawings or something. I was like, but I mean, I was going to say, I remembered I spoke about this in another interview, and it's worth remembering. And this is not to take away from reading, because I think it is a very useful and essential part of being a musician. Although I would just say, is my point of view, I've not found it essential. But if I could, I would, So, but I would say that one special memory, another great gig that I was lucky enough to do, was a gig for children in need at the Royal Albert Hall, and I was part of a house band there. And the house band was pretty much non-readers, and the BBC Concert Orchestra was all reading. So you've almost got, two sets of ways of getting to the same point of playing the same song. But as long as the end result is cohesive and everyone is playing together, then that's the main importance of it all, But if someone would have shouted out bar 32, I'd have been looking at the little drawings on my page to see what they meant by that. But I have done, so I've done gigs where I do play with readers, and no one's found me out until now. So.
Well, and something you just said there about proper musician. I think I'm going to pull you up on that, because I really don't think that just because you don't read drum music, that doesn't mean that someone is superior, a proper musician, because they play music. Not at all. But as an educator, I feel like, of course, if you have the time and inclination to read drum music, of course it's going to help. But by no means, is it essential. Loads of people can have a career in drums and in music without reading, and you're one of them. So there we are.
That's me. No, but again, going back, because we have to, I don't believe, from what I've read over the years, I don't think Phil Collins can read.
Right. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Ringo Starr can't read. And I don't know why I think this. Maybe you can confirm it. I don't know if Buddy Rich can read. I mean, Buddy Rich is arguably one of the greatest drummers in the world, but I don't know if he could read. I might have got that wrong.
I don't think
Phil definitely can't.
I don't think he could. No.
I mean, there's your case in point. But I mean, I was kind of being, I think I was just looking for some sympathy from you. And I got it. So I think that worked out well. No, I don't think I'm a lesser musician, or anyone is a lesser musician because they can't read. But I just think it's a useful tool. But it hasn't stopped me. I have to say, Tom, and to you and to your viewers, mate, that I've never lost a gig, but I would never put myself in a space where if someone was to offer a gig saying it's a reading gig in the West End, you're going to just come down tomorrow, the show starts at 8 and you're reading it. I would be honest enough to go, I'm not your guy, or girl, So so that's the thing with that.
And while we're talking about this, something I've just thought of, which I might mention, while we're talking about reading and learning material, we have a connection with an artist that I've worked with once that you've worked with a lot more than me. So I did a music video with Anastacia quite a while back, and obviously, you are, her touring drummer. And I remember for that video shoot, I was sent the track really, really late the night before, like, I don't know, 11 p.m. and I had to be there at 8 a.m. the next day. And I was sent the track, and of course I'd never heard it before. It hadn't been released. So I was expected to learn it in that short time on the train, up there. I didn't get to actually play it. Have you been in a situation where you've had to learn something that quickly? And, if that has been the case, how have you got around it?
That's a good question, and I must have been. I'm just trying to think of a situation where that has happened.
Or maybe actually, if something's been changed on the day, or like if you're doing a tour and they say, oh, what we want to do actually, we want to do a breakdown in the middle of this song, and you're thinking, oh, that's not how I've learnt it or programmed it in my brain, and I've got to remember that comes in there.
You've kind of led me to remember something that in the last few tours with Anastacia, she had her own app, and her fans could engage with her within the app. And one of the things that she liked to do was, aside from the set list, which was the same every night, it was the hits and the key album cuts that people love and expect to hear. There's also kind of some tracks that people love, especially the deeper fans that have been there a long time, that maybe wouldn't get to hear particular songs. And she had this idea, A for App, I believe. It ended up being released as an album, but basically what it was kind of lesser known, deeper cuts of hers that we learned. And we learned about 3 or 4, maybe 5 in production rehearsals, thinking that they were just going to rotate for the next kind of 3 or 4 month tour. And we kind of learned them pretty quick, and some of them were more difficult than others. Some were straightforward stuff, but as you know, nothing's easy, and especially when you put through a PA and people watching you, there's pressure, and you've got, especially when it's up against the other songs in the set that you've played millions of times and you're very comfortable with. Anyway, I'll get back to the story. She had this idea of having these songs, and it became a really popular part of the set. And we would go. She would go to the app every night, and she would see that the song with the most votes is, and she would tell us, and we would have to play that song that night. So, but as the tour evolved, more people said, "Oh, we're loving this idea. Can you play this song or that song?" And so more and more songs got added to the app, and we were learning songs on the road. I was learning songs in my bunk, and of course, if an artist is asking you to do something, you're going to do it. And I mean, there's something to be said for rehearsing with anyone for a long time to get it in your skin. But in this particular instance, we were learning songs on the road, extra songs. So yeah, that happened definitely quite a lot, and we were never caught out. But we always made sure our touring MD, Orifo Arakaway, always made sure that the sound check always involved some of those songs. So we'd at least done it, because the app sometimes could kind of change during the show. The vote within the app could change. By the time it gets called up, you're like, what? We haven't done that since, whenever. So, yeah.
And then it's like, 1, 2, 3, I don't know how this song starts.
I played for an artist, a dancey artist called Milo. He's a Scottish dance artist, and I went up to the Isle of Skye and played at this festival, and we kind of, it was all on an electronic kit, which is not my, I can play electronic drums, and we all kind of have that need and ability to trigger a few things, but I'm predominantly an acoustic kit drummer. But this was a predominantly, electronic kit gig. But it wasn't like every song was different patches. It was just stick to the patches. Even I think the keyboard player might have been changing the sounds, for song to song. But I got that quite late in the day, I seem to remember, off a friend of mine who couldn't do it. So I definitely had a few notes there, but yeah, I've been lucky, Tom. But yeah, the majority of the time I do know the material, and I'm not caught out.
Have you ever had anything go wrong on stage that you've had to recover from? And I mean here, like gear fails or brain fails.
I do remember playing. I remember because it was a great venue to be playing. We were playing the Hollywood Bowl on the Lennox tour, and we were playing. It was towards the end of the set where there was some really up tempo rock and stuff. There was a medley of a song called Missionary Man by the Eurythmics, which would merge with a song called I Need a Man. And within one of those two songs, my my beater snapped in half. Fortunately, you know, luckily enough on a tour like that, there's a tech to kind of come in and help you. And I had a brilliant drum tech Yard on that was looking out for me. But still, you have to recover quickly so the foundations of the song doesn't fall apart.
Mm.
And interestingly enough, or luckily enough for me on that, on I Need a Man, in the second verse of that song, I had a little pad with an electronic kick drum sound on, which was kind of on the record. And it was very much a programmed thing on the record. But I found a way of positioning that pad that would be comfortable to play that. I definitely couldn't do it with my foot. I'm not that good. And so because I already had an electronic kick drum sound on this pad for that second verse, I would just when I knew I couldn't use the kick drum, I was just hitting this pad where the kick drum part would be. So I was quite lucky that it actually happened on that song. Other things, brain fails, I'm trying to remember. I mean, of course, I'm only human, so I must have made a few things here and there, but I'd like to think not often. I do remember doing one of my early gigs with the Sugababes. There was a song called Hole in the Head we were playing, and we were doing like a club gig, I think somewhere in Shepherd's Bush. And there was a reggae kind of sort of a drop down section in the middle, you know. And the girls went to it too early. I was like, what the hell's going on? You know, like they went to this section and I was still, you know, I was still kind of on the up-tempo thing. But quickly, being the professional that I aspire to be, I go to the drop-down section with them. Then we go back up and we end the song. We do the rest of the set, and it's a great show. But I immediately say to the bass player MD afterwards, I said, "Wow, the girls went to that drop-down section too early." He went, "No, they didn't. You were late." I was so convinced that they had accidentally. So it was a small thing. I'm only human, but I have to say that I'd like to think, while I never profess to be the greatest drummer in the world, I'd like to think that I'm reliable and solid, and my memory is good on stage, and I'd like to pride myself in that ability, do you know what I mean, to be hopefully rock solid. But of course, you know, I'm human and things do happen, you know.
A couple of curveball questions for you now, Steve. So first one of those is, what are your hobbies away from drums?
Away from drums, right. I love music so much that it's such a big part of my life. So my hobbies really do kind of involve, you know, music really. I mean, I love going to see live shows. I love concerts. I love watching concerts on TV, but I love being in a venue watching my favorite band or even a band I've never heard of. I'm still, you know, a massive fan of that experience. Like us all, I can't wait to get back to that, you know. I love movies, you know. I love socializing with my friends, you know, but as I'm getting a little kind of a little older down the road, you know, I may not do that as much as I used to, you know. But I'm quite lucky where I live. We've got some nice parks around here, so I try and get out and keep the fresh air going in my lungs and keep well that way. But ultimately, I love movies, films. You know, I don't actually have a direct hobby. I've got to be honest with you. You know, it's kind of music based for me, really. You know, here's a hobby, Dad. I try and actually that's a professional.
Yeah, totally.
I'm trying to be a good dad and a better father, you know.
No, that's good. And it's, again, another sort of loaded question because, you know, there's no reason why we can't say that drums are our hobby, even though, you know, they're our profession as well. So
well, they are, and isn't that a lucky thing?
Yeah, exactly. Now on to the most important question of the interview. Well, some people would think.
Phil Collins. Okay. We've already done that one.
What's your favourite biscuit?
Wow, I've never been asked this before. Let's think. I'm going to say chocolate chip.
Oh, chocolate chip. What, so like a Maryland chocolate chip cookie, a little one, or like a big cookie?
Do you like a big cookie? I mean, look at me. Come on, you can see. I'm the cookie monster, right? Now, I do love a cookie. Yeah, chocolate chip cookie. I'm going to go with that.
And would you dunk the chocolate chip cookie?
Dunk in a hot tea or coffee, you mean?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Nah, man.
Oh.
That's not a dunkable thing, I don't think. I mean, I guess you could break it in half and get some dunkage that way. But no, I don't tend to. You know, my wife likes to dunk a biscuit. I've noticed that. We've not talked about it in all the years we've been married, but she's a dunker. But yeah, me, I just prefer the cookie as it is, really, mate. To be honest with you.
Awesome.
Good question.
So, my last question for you today, Steve. If you could give just one bit of advice to an up and coming drummer, what would that advice be?
I would say practice, of course, practice, and be aware of the many things that you can do on your instrument, and of course the importance of drumming as being a great drummer and learning about the different things you can do on a kit. But I would equally say that while it is about drumming, not everything's about drumming, especially if you want to work and say be a freelance or a session player. I think there's something to be said for um, making sure that you listen to lots of different styles of music and embracing as many styles as possible, and kind of getting familiar with them, because you never know when they're going to be called out to you that you're going to, play any of those, So I'd say, yeah, I'd say that's important. And where possible, play with as many people, different musicians as possible, because one, it's a great feeling to play with other people. I love playing drums, but I prefer playing drums with other people, hands down. It makes me a better drummer, I think, being surrounded by great musicians, and it's like a dance of responding to, what people are doing around you. So yeah, play with as many people as possible, and because that's going to help you as a musician. It's going to help your ears to listen to what is necessary for the song that you're playing.
Mm.
And outside of being a musician, if you want to go on tour and be on the road, but it's also about people skills and being aware of the people around you that you're sharing your travels and tour days with, because you don't know what's going on in people's minds. They might be having a tough time at home with their family or missing their loved ones. So you need to be aware as a human being of other people's feelings, and best you can, just try and be a decent person. I'm definitely not the funniest person in the world, but I always try and make people smile, and I'm probably renowned more for telling bad jokes than I am for my drumming, because I just try and bring a bit of a smile to the tour I'm on, So yeah, that's my advice. Be a good person, surround yourself with good music, and do your best.
So, Steve, thank you so much for spending your time with us at DrumWise today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Tom, thanks so much, mate. It's been great. Great to see you.